I think to put in context the discussion on the White Sox, we have to look at this from the whole picture, not just the trading deadline.
Yeah.
But the draft rules are such that the White Sox fall into the category where they are a payor into the revenue sharing pool, large market team, so they can't pick in the top 6 2 years in a row. So no matter what happens this year, they're picking 10. So they knew that going into the year. So when you look at the White Sox, guys, to me, not that you're going to hit on every decision you make. And believe me, in this discussion, I will tell you up front, everybody's job is easier in the game to do when you're not the one doing it.
Absolutely. And how many no's are you getting?
Exactly. So, but strategically, they have to look at it and go, okay, what do we want to accomplish through this season to put us in position of improving as we go into future season? Ultimately, that's what rebuilds are all about. You used to rebuild by tanking.
Yeah.
And then year after year, your Astros, the Orioles, the Chicago Cubs, and you get those high picks. Year after year, you get more money in your Latin American pool. You sign more free agent players from there. That doesn't exist anymore. So now your one true option in rebuilding is to take the core of your current club, your stars, and turn those into as many players you possibly can. So taking a step back, looking at it from 20,000 feet, with the White Sox, they had 3. They had Cease, they had Crochet, and they have Robert. And then Fetty, to me, they did a great job of signing him, turning him into an asset, but ultimately he's a contributor, not an impact guy. So when you look at it, this is the return they got for Cease. Thorpe looks like a solid contributor in a major league rotation. The other 3 are lottery picks not having great years. So immediately when the Cease deal got made, I went, why would they do that now?
Okay.
The risk of injury is 1.
Okay.
That is it. Because reality, if Cease is in this rotation with Fetty and Crochet, you're not losing 14 and then 16 games in a row, knowing you're going to pick 10 to begin with anyway. So now at the deadline, they then trade, the Crochet thing blows up on him, and that's a whole nother discussion of not managing his innings, so he wouldn't be in this position at the trading deadline. Not having him so close to the agreed-upon number that they went into the season looking at. And then Robert, unfortunately, just had a bad year because in reality, those 3 players in a rebuild need to bring back 12 players, 3 impact, 6 contributors, 3 lottery tickets. That's now how you have to rebuild in the game. And when they traded Fetty, I do like the Vargas kid. I think they've got their future third baseman there. They didn't turn those other 2 guys into any assets whatsoever. In reality, Cease really at this point in time got them back, not an impact guy, but a contributor in a major league rotation. So they really are in a challenging position as they move forward because they just don't have many more assets to trade. And that you can get a good player, maybe a really good player at 10.
Sure.
But historically, your impact guys come in those top half of the first round.
Boy, that's enlightening right there.
Wow.
I want to ask you about
so many
the San Diego Padres real quick because they were obviously very effective. And I'm wondering, I think it was you that had
this. Let's put up that board. Yeah,
this
look, Matt Baker's board, not Dan
This
O'Dowd's
graphic, I think, puts into context, Dan, prospects and how fans and media view them here. Okay.
Well, go ahead, Robert, roll through that board for me.
So this right here, since this is what, 2013 to 2023.
Robert, this is crazy. Look at this
633 prospects traded at the deadline. 23 of them, so less than 4%, have become, quote, impact players. 74 have become impact players or contributors.
And let's look at some of the names.
These are your definitions.
Absolutely.
Let me see some of the names.
Let's just look at some of the names. These are the players that have been traded, at the deadline.
Okay. Guys that have gone on to, like you said, have impact. Tyler O'Neill, C.J. Abrams, Joe Ryan, Hader.
And I give even Eloy Jimenez the benefit of the doubt here. I didn't try to even a setup guy like.
So the message is what,
I know where you're
What's
going.
the message we should take away from what the Padres did and kind of how we view prospects and things like that?
Well, again, when you look at what the Padres have done up to yesterday, where we've traded more. Since the end of 2023, they've traded 19 prospects, 12 of their top 15 ranked prospects. Out of the last 10-year draft, they've traded 9 of their first pick in each year's draft.
Yeah.
So AJ has figured out that board.
Yeah.
AJ's playing the odds of saying, You know,
You're saying he's not being reckless.
well, I don't know if necessarily I would do it exactly because like trading Trey Turner, Max Fried, yeah, that that's
saying 3% of you guys are going to impact
3.6% are going to impact anyway. So I'm going to take the proven major leaguer. Now I don't think he can do this if their payrolls, if their payroll was a mid to small market team, he couldn't play this game because you need the aggregate sum of all those players in those type of environments. But I mean, I've got to give it credit to him. Like he's playing the odds.
And he identified the right Jackson Merrill.
And I tell you what, D-Row, the one thing we've got to give AJ credit for, and I say this all the time, I said it at the draft, I'll say it again here, the only incredibly impactful tool executives have in this game is they've got to be able to evaluate talent. I don't care how much data you read. Yeah. I don't care who you have around. At the end of the day, the person that sits in that seat, they got to know players. This dude, he knows players.
The Orioles evaluate talent very well, but knowing what you know, that under 4%, do you feel like they played it too safe, or do you like what they did?
I'm mixed. This group certainly has deserved the benefit of the doubt. And let me give you a little bit of background to it. It's really hard as a front office to make a transition between build, play for the future, automatically switch and say, go for it. Because when you go through rebuilds, I am telling you, there's nothing harder in the game. It taxed you emotionally, physically, mentally. It takes you down to your core. So you never want to stink again. So it's hard to go after rentals with your prospects, knowing that they're only going to be there a short period of time. But saying that, I think they overreacted to what their needs were. Like if you looked at the Orioles going into this deadline, I said they need an impact starting pitcher. I mean, I love the Eflin deal. Yeah. But I like the Eflin deal even moving forward next year as much as this year. Yeah. And they need someone to protect themselves in the back end of the bullpen if Craig goes into one of his I can't get anybody out type scenarios. And I don't know if they accomplished either of those, but they threw a massive number of players at the situation, and I don't even know where all these players fit. So I almost feel like they were still in this talent acquisition mode rather than this strategic, let's place the right guy in the right situation. And if we can't do that, well, let's just take a step back, because the one thing we do have, this incredible chemistry amongst players that overcome everything. Now you're bringing seven new players.
Guys are walking in the door. And we've been arguably the best team in the American League all year. 7?
And let me tell you, one of the greatest...
Some of these boys are walking out the door. There's some upset guys.
One of the greatest things that I learned, and Clint Hurdle taught me this, he says, Danny, you are exceptionally intelligent. You're very aggressive. You need to figure out, though, your unintended consequences of the decisions you make. And I go, what does that mean? That every decision you make that you think affects one player, in reality, is affecting 10 more. So give me an example. They bring in Pache and Slater. Now, Cedric Mullins is going, well, I'm not going to play against left-hand pitching. It's like, this is my last year. I'm gone. The left-handed DH, O'Hearn saying, well, they got Jimenez, so I'm never going to see it.
Saying that.
And so all of them start to think about themselves a little bit, and all they were thinking about up to this point in time is the team. Now they've got to manage that.
Robert, and maybe we've been trying to tell you this.
I know, I listen. I mean, I'm all
like
in.
I say this about chemistry. Chemistry is impossible to create because it has to happen organically. It's not talked about in the data analytical rooms because you can't measure it. So they don't even want to touch it in our game. But when you see it, like, you know it. Yeah. And so, like, to me, you can't mess with that. Like, you literally, it's such a fine line between having it and not having it.
You want one or two big dogs to walk in that door, and everybody knows who they should be, and the guys that are scuffling, and they were going to pick up the place. You're going to see 7 guys walk in. I'm like, well,
what do I always say?
We got here? You're like trying to get too cute at the margin.
Dan makes us smarter.
Every single time I'm locked in on what he's saying.
That was really good. Real quick on the Giants.
Giants, okay, listen, I get it. They trade Soler because they wanted to open up bats for Luciano, who started as their shortstop until they realized they can't.
He's been on the Giants all morning.
So they can't play shortstop. Listen, I know we don't have much time. For me, what the Giants need to do between now and the end of the year, need to get an identity. Okay. They need to say,
who are the San Francisco Giants? Who are you?
I don't know.
Who are you?
You've asked that question for a couple of years, though.
And that's the job of a GM. The job of a GM is to say, when the Giants won, we had great starting pitching, a deep, versatile bullpen, and we had offensive players, Udiro was one of them, that knew how to play winning offensive baseball without a lot of power on those teams.
Yeah.
They're all over the map.
What's the Tyler Madsick back for Jorge Soler doing?
It's just money for money because they wanted to open up that and they wanted to get below the luxury tax.
Yeah.
It's an even year.
Really good stuff.
Should have
Dan.
moved Snell.
Yeah, we need a whole nother segment to do that.
And
That was-
I would have liked if the Guardians honored Stephen Vogt and that team. I know Chris Antonetti's doing his best to make it work there. I would have liked to seen a little more.
Who would you have liked to see? That's the problem.
I know you're not going to get a Flaherty in division, something like that, but somebody who would have.
I
really
did this analysis
changed
yesterday
it.
about Thomas versus Rosarena. Thomas
I'll
is
take
actually,
the Thomas acquisition.
Well, statistically, he's a better player.
Yeah.
And so, there weren't many impact offensive players to go get. And I actually
That's
like
the thing. It was either Scooble Crochet or someone that was going to have to wow us.
And the whole Crochet discussion should be a whole nother segment because that's one of the more bizarre situations. I had one with Ubaldo Jimenez when he told me, if you don't sign me to an extension, I'm not going to pitch. So he got traded to Cleveland. But other than that, I have never
called his bluff.
Well, I had to wait for a little. He did that early in the year, so it took me a couple months.
That was excellent. Excellent stuff.